Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about Serge Lutens Chergui again, because I did talk about it when I discussed the things I received in that package of fragrances, of samples from my dear friend. But today, because I already talked about it, so I think I described the smell fairly well, I would like to mention Chergui again, because I got it. I've got this 50 milliliter bottle, and I would like to maybe do a bit of a comparison with two other fragrances I got here, which Chergui kind of reminds me of within some points, and they are, of course, Lac du Désert Marocain by Andy Tower, and the other one is Bois d'Arménie by Guerlain. So we'll kind of smell the three of them and see what the points are between all of them. Now this is a 50 milliliter bottle that I truly like. They're so tiny, and I have one other 50 milliliter bottle of Serge Lutens, which is Jeu de Peau. The thing I want to mention about this type of bottle from Serge Lutens, first of all, I do love all their bottles. They are very chic, they are very minimalistic. I love the design. What I don't like is because when you buy them, they have this shorter cap, which I have right here. This is the shorter cap. Then you have to craft your own bottle. And when you do this, because this is the way you're supposed to have this bottle, you can no longer close the box, which is such a minor nitpick, but this comes in useful when you want to travel with the fragrance. You know, this little cap right there. So enough complaining about the silly packaging, which isn't silly at all. It's just, as I said, it's a minor thing, a minor inconvenience, because I do like to keep my fragrances inside their box as much as I can, because it's another layer of protection, and it's always good. Now let's remind ourselves how Chergui smells, and this will be a lot of me just, you know, gushing over Chergui and how beautiful this is. And there it is. Oh my goodness. It's starting. Well, this is beautiful. This is a So from the first moment I smelled this, I knew this was a fragrance I had to purchase. I had to have it, because the way, and I think this about Chergui is also true about Ambre Sultan, because in a way, the fragrances do stem from one another. I think Chergui kind of starts within Ambre Sultan. At some point, it's about that ambery, slightly musky kind of scent that's very fresh and airy at the same time. This is true for both of them, both Ambre Sultan and Chergui. However, I think the closest brother to Chergui within the Serge Lutens fragrances, and I wouldn't be able to tell you most specifically, because I haven't smelled all of them. There are tens of fragrances from Serge Lutens that I haven't smelled, but this is eerily closer to Jeu de Peau, and which means this is, to me, to my nose, this is how I perceive it, this is milky and spicy and very delicate and very creamy. And it's something that kind of feels like a warm embrace, because this is what Jeu de Peau is to me. And I will have to talk about that one at some point. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it, aside from now. Chergui takes its name from Charqui, which is this desert wind. It's a warm wind, and I do find this very interesting. First of all, I find all cultures that name their winds to be extremely fascinating, and this reminds me of my last trip to Italy on the eastern coast, to Termoli. I found a mosaic close to the beach where they depicted all of the winds, and there are many of them, and I wouldn't be able to tell you all of them, but I remember this one, Scirocco, and a local told me it was supposed to be this warm Saharan wind, and maybe there is a relationship between Sharkey and Scirocco. I don't know about that, but it is fascinating nevertheless. In my culture, I think we only have one wind. I may be wrong. I think we only have one wind that's mentioned, and it's called krivots, and it's an Arctic wind actually. It's a very continental, very cold, very dry wind as well, krivots, that happens in the winter time. Well, that's a different story. But I would love to smell a fragrance inspired by this type of cold wind. Now, this is the polar opposite of a cold wind. This is a warm wind that inspired Chergui. And I think this is very interesting because as far as cold, dry winds are concerned, how poetic this is when translated in a fragrance. I mean, the fragrance has to be exactly austere and warm, spicy, and it has to be airy enough and fresh enough that it does indeed create the impression of a wind, the impression of a gust of air. And I think Chergui kind of just works on this regard. Now, what I love about this fragrance is, of course, the airiness and the freshness, and the fact that it's a rather, it's a resinous composition. It is, in fact, an amber. Chergui is an amber. It's a honeyed tobacco sort of amber that's very dry. It has sweetish elements that are never too much. It has a very prominent, actually, a quite prominent vanilla note that reminds me, it's so well done. It reminds me of other fragrances from La Relamatière. And I think, first and foremost, this is why I fell in love so easily with Ambre Sultan and Chergui, because I came from a background of loving La Relamatière, which are these, powerful, well, most of them are tremendous ambers that are based on, resins and vanilla and everything that Guerlain has to offer in that regard. And I find that Christopher Sheldrake works vanilla very, very well. And it's the same type of boozy, delicate, fresh vanilla that you can find in other fragrances from Guerlain, especially in La Relamatière. And this is why I bring Bois d'Arménie up. Between these milky, warm things that you smell in Chergui, there's also this vegetal coumarin type note that's very fresh, and it's like dry hay. And actually, Fragrantica just mentions this hay note, and I think it's very appropriate because it's dry, it's herbal, delicate enough that you can barely perceive it, but it is there. And I think it works very, very well with the other important player in Chergui, which is the iris. Now, because of that iris, I inadvertently thought of Bois d'Arménie, because Bois d'Arménie, which is an Enigmanardo, for those of you who care about this, and it is important to care about this, because as I mentioned in previous videos, Enigmanardo does very, very well with fresh fragrances that are very heavy in composition. Oh, there it is. Bois d'Arménie centers on benzoin, which is, I think by now it's Enigmanardo's signature, on amber, on benzoid as part of an amber fragrance. And in a way, this blue, papery, dry iris kind of brings this composition into a very sweetish, moody, melancholy, dark, but fascinatingly green and airy type of scent. Bois d'Arménie is one of my most favorite things from La Matière ever. And again, with Chergui, I think they have in common this boozy vanilla, which is much more overt in Bois d'Arménie from the start, from the beginning of the fragrance. In Chergui, I think the boozy vanilla kind of comes a bit after the spices and after the airiness and the camphorous aspects kind of blow you away and kind of announce their, airy composition. Bois d'Arménie is, again, it has this musk that's quite similar to Chergui as well. It's the type of musk that's so well hidden. It's not overt. It's not the type of musk that, I'm thinking about an example of a very musky fragrance that doesn't always work well in all situations. And I think the best one it's another amber, and it's Calvin Klein's Obsession for Men. That one is also a very spicy, kind of animalic type of amber with a very musky base. But in Obsession for Men, the musks are much too powerful, they're much too obvious. And when I'm wearing Obsession for Men in heat, the musk kind of decomposes into something that's not unpleasant, but it kind of trivializes the fragrance, if you know what I mean. It kind of makes it more common. It doesn't feel like the fragrance is staying all that well put together. And it's not about the reformulation. Obsession for Men has always been like this. So I always appreciate when a musky fragrance doesn't do that. And Bois d'Arménie wears as a musk, it wears spectacularly in Chergui as well. And of course, there's the beautiful, beautiful iris, which I think, when I'm smelling them side by side, it's, for a moment there, I thought I was smelling Chergui here in Bois d'Arménie, because they're very, very similar at certain points. So the iris kind of gives this green, fresh, but somehow, as I said, darker feel to the fragrance. It's like the mysterious quality, and it's also the delicate embrace type of very easy to like type of floral, because it's the only floral that you can find both in Chergui and in Bois d'Arménie, I think. Although, to be quite frank, I think in Chergui there might be a touch of jasmine, just a touch, because I think Chergui is just a bit fresher and more open and more airy than Bois d'Arménie, which is, it's natural. Okay, now the other fragrance I want to mention today in comparison to Chergui is L'air du désert marocain, because it is the obvious choice, isn't it? Because L'air du désert marocain, that's the name of the fragrance right there. Chergui or Sharky, it's the name of the actual Morocco desert wind, while this is just alluring. L'air du désert is just alluring to this type of Moroccan wind. And oh my goodness, in comparison to Chergui, because I do have another video discussing L'air du désert marocain, I don't need to describe it here as well. But in comparison to Chergui, this indeed feels so much drier and so much more austere, and you can sense the leathery aspects more, and you can sense the labdanum a lot more, because Chergui does come across as much sweeter and more vegetal in comparison to L'air du désert, while L'air du désert is spicier. And because I know the dry down, because I've been wearing this for, you know, some time now, in the dry down, L'air du désert does have a sweet side. L'air du désert does have a beautiful vanilla in it, which is, I think it's the thing that ties them, you know, besides the airiness of the fragrance and besides the resinous composition. I think it's the vanilla, funnily enough, which ties Chergui to L'air du désert. The vanilla of L'air du désert in its dry down, you have to fully wear the fragrance to get to that part where the vanilla kind of envelops everything. And it's such a beautiful welcome, because it's not over sweet vanilla, it's still dry vanilla, fresh vanilla, which is very beautiful to have in a fragrance. And because I know it's there, you know, I can kind of detect the hints of it. It's just a tiny dose, but it is there. So very beautiful. I think L'air du désert comes across as more camphorous all in all. I think it's mintier. It has a more cooling effect, while Chergui is truly warm in terms of scent. You know, it does create this warming sensation, a very airy warming sensation, while L'air du désert has this cooling effect because of the camphor. It is a truly remarkable scent. I mean, all three of them are. And in comparison, I'm very glad I did this. I never did this before. In comparison, I think I'm starting to appreciate all of them a bit more, because even though I'm comparing them, they're not the same scent. You know, that I think this is obvious, but they do share something in common, all of them. And I find that to be very beautiful. Now, Chergui is the type of, oh, there it is. It's the milkiest of all three of them. And it's the warmest, and it has this addictive quality to it where I just can't let this one go. I need to wear it all the time. And as much as I've worn Ambre Sultan to bed lately, I've been wearing Chergui to bed. I mean, just look at, this is quite a dent for a new fragrance to me. You know, it's something I've worn very much, and again, it's something I've been wearing to sleep, because it's that type of soothing fragrance. I don't know, this is amazing in terms of craftsmanship. It is so good, and it's a lot more recent than Ambre Sultan. Well, it's 2001, and this one is 2005 or 2003, I don't remember. And Bois d'Arménie, I think it has to be 2006, and L'air du désert 2005. Okay. So they're not all that far apart from each other. I wonder if I were to, you know, mix them up, would I be able to tell them apart? I mean, I should be able, because they're quite different, but just as a curiosity to me. I don't know what I'm smelling. I don't know which one will be which. Okay. Yes, this is Chergui because of the milky, airy, ambery, my goodness, green iris coumarin. This is Bois d'Arménie because of that unmistakably Guerlain, honey, boozy vanilla, medicinal benzoin perfection. My goodness, I love this one so much. And, well, this one would have been obvious, but you know, they are quite close to one another. They are quite close. L'air du désert has this sweetish vibe again. Sweetish and very spicy, warm again. The fact that it's both warm and has that cooling effect, I think it's what makes the contrast, the wind, right? I think it's producing the wind effect, this contrast between camphorous and warming, cooler and warmer aspects of it. It is beautiful. All right, so I don't want this to be a terribly long video, so I'm going to end it at that. If you've got any other questions about all the fragrances we've talked about today, do let me know. And until next time, remember, fragrance creates memories, and may yours be happy.